Hey, good afternoon from not the shop today. I am on location, and today we're going to do something incredibly fun and popular and something I've never done before. We're going to be installing a Rove Sun, a mini split AC unit, and I think this is about 12,000 BTUs. Yes, 12,000 BTUs, and this does only take 115 or 120 volts AC. And we're going to be installing it in a fifth wheel Solitude from Grand Design. Now, like I said at the beginning, I've never installed a mini split on an RV before. So this is going to be something of a learning experience for me too. Now, what's a mini split? Well, it's basically a normal AC unit with an outside condensing unit and an inside air handler. They're just called mini splits because they're basically all self-contained. Well, obviously they're not self-contained because there's two of them. But unlike central AC unit, there's no ductwork that you have to mess with. Now, this is also going to be Wi-Fi compatible, so you can just download an app to operate it. It also does come with a remote to control it. And thankfully, unlike a RV roof AC, there's no wired thermostat I have to worry about. However, unlike most roof ACs for RVs, it's difficult to find a place to mount this. Now, this part right in here is what most people are going to see when they install a mini split. This is the air handler where the inside air goes in through little filters up on top right here, and then comes out the discharge tube over here. But just like a central AC unit you'll have in a residential house, it does have an outside unit that has airflow across the condensing coil. Now, while I think the new RV manufacturer Axiom is starting to install mini splits, you don't see many people install them because we have to connect that unit with a line set, which is just a copper tubing right here. Now, this is not a Mr. Cool mini split, so the fittings right here are just flared fittings like we'd see in a normal LP system. So I will need a little bit of specialized tooling when I go to run the line set right there. If you want to do the Mr. Cool, it's about, I think, $400 or $500 more than this unit, because they still have a patent apparently on the quick connect fittings for the line set. So why would the owner want to go with a mini split that's going to be a lot more difficult to install rather than the 3 roof ACs that were already installed by the manufacturer? Well, I don't think I should have to tell you if you clicked on this video, but roof ACs on RVs are incredibly inefficient. The electrical power in California is incredibly expensive, and obviously the owner's done the math at this point and found out that they'd rather not pay $500 to $600 a month to run those roof ACs. Now, mini splits by their very design are already incredibly efficient, but they are also going to be inverted, so they are a lot more efficient than even mini splits of 10 years ago. So the owner's hope is not only will this replace at least 2 of the roof ACs, but it'll use less power as one unit than obviously the 2 roof ACs that this one's replacing. We'll see if that's true or not. But at the very least, because it's going to be ducted straight from the air handler right here, the air that the AC is making cold won't have to go through the ceiling and get heated up as it goes through the ductwork here above. Now, in general, the biggest problem I've ever had about installing a mini split in an RV is that there generally isn't a great location to put the mini split, because most RVs have a lot of cabinetry and slide outs that don't allow for a nice clean installation of a mini split, especially if it's still going to be going down the road. About the only open wall I have is over on this side, on the entry door side. And while if this was a house, that would probably be okay. We'd just put the line set out the wall right here and go straight down and put the air and then put the condensing unit on the ground right here. Obviously, the owner would like to retain some resale value on it, so putting a hole out the sidewall right there and putting the condensing unit on the ground right there would mean they could never move this fifth wheel. But I also would have a very big hesitation of installing a mini split like that for a paying customer, because I couldn't be proud of doing that. Now, luckily, this fifth wheel is equipped with a section that I think will work. Right above the sofa right here is a lot of storage space, and the owner says they don't use that very much. In fact, it's too much storage space. So what I think I'm going to do is mount the air handler right up here. Obviously, if I go too far back, I will have an air distribution issue, so I might have to build a wall to bring the whole thing forward. And my original plan was to run the line set out the back wall, straight out the wall right there, come down, and then mount the outside condensing unit on the bumper down here using a normal bracket. However, this does not have a bumper on it. And it also doesn't have a wall I would trust to hold the weight of this unit bouncing down the road. And even though I didn't like the idea of running the tubing outside the wall right here, the customer's going to be fine with it, but I think I came up with a better solution. I think I can put it right behind that panel right there. Now this is going to be pretty tight and take a lot of effort, I think. But if this does work, I think the owner and myself will be very pleased with the way it turns out, because I should be able to mount the air handler right where these glass doors are right there, move the line set, come down the cabinetry right here, kind of make a false corner trim, and come all the way down into this countertop on this end table, go down into the floor down below, and then come down the floor right here, because I'm going to have the outside unit mounted right on the frame. Then the line set will be able to go straight to the fittings on the outside unit by itself. Now this comes pre-charged, so you don't need a special license to do this. But I have given myself an incredible task to do, and not a lot of time to do it. So what I'm going to do first is mock everything up before I make any permanent changes to this fifth wheel. So basically, I'm going to take all those cabinet doors off, move this sofa out of the way, move all this stuff out of the way, and make sure it'll fit, while at the same time figuring out a way to mount these securely, because this is an I-beam on the frame. So I think I can get some spacer block to fill the gap right there, and then through bolt it through the frame. I will have to access underneath here to through bolt everything, because like I said, this is going to be pretty tight. Let me see what I can do. We'll check back in a second. All right, so pardon my crudeness, but this took a lot of effort. Once I got this bracket mocked up on this side of the frame, I was sticking out too far against the sidewall there, so I did have to move it behind the frame, and I had to make a spacer block for it. Now my spacer block looks very similar to this. The outside, or I guess the inside one, is 11.5 inches long, but I did have to take off the corners of both sides because there's a little bit of a gusset on either side of that I-beam there. So basically it's going to fit in just like that, which means the weight will get transferred to the frame substantially. But it is something of a puzzle putting together, because I do have to bolt my long 3-inch carriage bolts from the back side, kind of like that, and then feed the whole thing in and put it in place. Luckily I did put a set screw in right there, so I can just screw the bracket in and then bolt it. But after all that, it's going to be quite substantial, because even the lower bolt can't go any further down, so that's going to be transferring a lot of stress onto that one too. But it's crude because I had to use two pieces of 1.5-inch tube aluminum. The extra holes because I have a screw holding them together while I'm building this. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. It's complicated. Alright, so now we should be able to carry the weight of that unit. Oh yeah, I forgot the other great thing about putting a mini split on. I just found out while I'm working on this. As you can see, it dripping right next to where I'm working. The AC's on, coming out from up there. So we eliminate another potential leak point on the roof. Let's see if this fits. That's close. See, this is why you mock things up. Don't think I can get any closer right here. And I'm just gonna barely clear over here because the bracket down here has a little bit of a downward slope to it, because we have to put the lock bolts in right there. Now, maybe this would have been easier if I didn't use off-the-shelf mini split condensing unit brackets. In fact, I even bought some isolators right here to make it a little bit quieter, but I don't have that kind of space at all. And I think this is gonna work, just barely. And when it comes to the belly skin right there, I'm just have to slice on either side of this so it can bend back forward, and that'll be fine. I need that open anyways to get the bolts through. And these will probably be sticking out too much, so I'll have to cut those off. I guess the last critique, if you're gonna have one, is gonna be that now this is the lowest point on the back of the RV. Now the jacks up there hang down about the same right here, but of course, if somebody's not careful, they could break this unit. But I'm working with what I have. They'll have to take care. It's not hanging down much lower than the hitch here anyways. And yeah, when I put the metal on, maybe it'll block too much airflow. I'm hoping not, because there is the side over here, and I did open up the top to allow a lot of airflow. And more importantly, this is pretty much how it would be installed on a house anyways. Granted, there'd be nothing in front of this. If airflow issue is an issue on the metal, I can just go ahead and cut out some of that metal right there to enhance the airflow. And then it'll be really cool looking. Now with this kind of figured out, I'll take you back inside and let you see what I'm planning on doing. It's kind of easier compared to the outside, and I get to be inside. So this is the air handler centered on the opening right there. So I'll remove this style right here and probably move it over right to about here-ish, do the same thing over there. And then I'll get some paneling to fill in the gap in between the two styles there. We'll still have the cabinet door there and a little bit of overflow storage on each side. Otherwise, the line or the tubing will come down here, come down the corner like I said it would. And if we can take a look at the beautiful work that Grand Design did, they didn't seal that off very well, or under here very well. So I'll just have the line set coming down right there, which of course we just saw outside. That's where the unit's going to be. So I think it'll almost be invisible. My biggest problem, or biggest concern, is that the paneling I got may not match completely, but I think it'll be close enough. And for what it's worth, AC's been running all day, only one of them, 86 degrees in here. And remember, on these styles, they're mostly just pocket screwed together, so it's not that difficult to change the layout of the cabinet face. Hopefully you can see I'm just going to move it right about there, and then we'll fill that panel in just like the factory would. Alright, so the air handler is 32 inches long. That's the middle of the cabinet right there. That's 16 inches there. That's 16 inches there. Looks to me like if I put a 6-inch gap, that makes the most amount of sense and still gives me, I don't know, about 4 inches of clearance, maybe 3 inches of clearance between the end of the air handler and the start of the cabinet. That should work. Alright, so that style's installed and that one's installed. And I think once it's filled in with a piece of paneling, it'll look very factory. And believe it or not, once the paneling is in there and stapled on both sides and on the top and the bottom, it'll make this cabinet a lot stronger too. Paneling is pretty strong. This paneling right here would have any real tensile strength to it, but it really does. I mean, it doesn't break when I want it to break. At any rate, hopefully you can hear me over the AC. The next step is to build that false wall to put the air handler in, and it won't be down low. It'll be kind of right in the middle so we get good airflow. So I added these two pieces of framing right in there just so that the weight of the shelf that I'm going to put in here, the wall, isn't going to just collapse the paneling. It'll support the weight just fine. I just wanted to spread out the weight on the paneling. So I just put those in there, put some wires through so that I can wire the lights back up right there. Hopefully it makes more sense if I put this down. You should be able to see how flexible it is right there. But right here where I put the marks, it's not going to collapse. So now when I put a stringer across right there, it should be fine to carry the weight. It won't collapse. Well, it won't squeeze. Is that the best way to put it? All too easy. Alright, I think with that out of the way, I should be able to start building this cabinet. Next thing is going to do, put the paneling in right here. I did make a mark right there. I'm going to just cut out a little bit of that paneling so that the panel that I put right here will tuck down behind there. Just like that. So now when I go ahead and put this back, it'll slide down behind there. And then we'll fit right below there. So at the bottom here, it won't try to be pushed in. And then hopefully you'll notice I'm also bringing or spacing away from the edge right there. So when I put in the framing that's going to go right here, I'll be able to make a much better edge on the paneling when it goes right there. Hopefully it makes sense in a second. But hopefully you can see with it in place, we're now connecting the top style to the side stiles and of course down to the bottom. This is going to be really strong now. It'll give a little bit of decorative appeal too, instead of just being one brown mass of fake lumber anyways. Because we are losing those glass doors. It'll just be a wood door and a wood door. So break it up a little bit. Now some people might be upset that I'm using screws and not staples to put the paneling in. But if you've ever taken a cabinet apart, you'll appreciate having a way to take it apart really easily in the future. So I'm just using these wafer-headed Phillips screws. These are going to add a lot of strength, and nobody's ever going to see the inside of this cabinet here. And I'll be using different screws on the other paneling. Okay, so we got that panel installed right there. Nice and strong. Okay, get that one done. Let's start building this thing. So for the framing, I just picked up some 1x2 poplar from the big box store, and this is 1/8" paneling. I find it's usually easiest to cut with a nice sharp razor blade. You cut it just like you would normally drywall. Score, 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 then break. Otherwise, make 2 of these, and we're ready to build that cabinet. Simple. I think that'll look pretty good. That'll close off this side, and maybe it's not good on the inside, but it's going to be really difficult to see it unfinished. But hopefully you can see I just did a picture frame all the way around, and yeah, it's going pretty well. But I think it's really starting to come together here. All right, now most of these screws aren't going to be seen because there's going to be a wall right about here. But hopefully you can also see where I put or set back the framing so that the edge of the paneling would be hidden behind there. So it looks like a factory finish, and it was very lazy and easy to do. Now while I admit it wasn't time to put the cabinet doors back on, I did want to get an overview of what it's going to look like. And I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping I could flip this one to open up from this way, but because the handles are off center like that, if I flip it, the handle will be way up and you won't be able to grab it. But like I said, I don't think anybody will be able to even, like, without trying really hard, to see the unfinished inside of that cabinet. And most definitely the unfinished inside of that cabinet. We did salvage a lot of storage space that was up there. Let's build this. Okay, so I'm framing this up with 2x4 down into the bottom frame there, the upper frame there, and remember I did put that stringer right in here, so we can just go ahead and put hopefully some screws right down into there. And of course on this side too. And now I just have to cut a piece of 1/2" plywood to fit into place. Alright, so it's just a 1/2" piece of plywood I put up there. And I cut that a little bit narrower on direction so it would fit in there okay. Now we just cover that with a piece of paneling, and then we can finally mount this thing. Alright, and just like that, it looks a lot better. And once we put the bracket on, I think we're going to be almost on the home stretch. But yeah, I know it's not the home stretch, but I have to tell myself that. There's a bracket I'm talking about right there. It just clips in. So this is going to get mounted on the wall I just built. And then this is going to be the refrigerant lines. That's a condensate drain line. And then we should also have power connections over here once we get it mounted. And just to be easy, I'll probably just put this right in the middle, because because it does have airflow that goes through the top. But also I'll probably be upset with myself because I closed this off already. So I'm going to have to run everything through here and then fish it through there, because copper tubing doesn't bend so easily to make an S shape. However, I do have a plan. Now this goes on kind of like a microwave oven over the range, and the bracket holds the majority of the weight, and of course I feel very confident about the strength of that wall and the cabinetry now. And I think, all things considered, looks like the factory did that. I really feel like that's what the factory would have done. In fact, like I said, I think Axiom is now installing mini splits. They call them RV certified mini splits, but I don't even know what that means. But I think this is really what the future is going to hold for RVs. And it's going to be so much quieter. I just know it. I don't know if you guys can hear me over that AC right there. And this has the styrofoam dampener in the ductwork too. And it might surprise you to know the AC is pulling about 2,000 watts. And even the low sun, we're still making 1,200 watts. So only using 700 watts. So if we can get that mini split to use a lot less than 1,900 watts and cool better than 2 ACs, we're doing great. But really the next step for me is just to mark out where I need to drill the hole to get all the tubing through, make an access panel inside of my paneling I just put over there, and then start routing everything back down, drilling a hole, drilling a hole, drilling a hole. Alright, I got that hole cut out, and then an access hole over here. Just have to measure this out, because I'll have to probably pre-bend this so that everything lines up and I can do it in the cabinet there. Alright, so hopefully you can see now I can get to the lines right here, and I can start the drip line a little bit higher and then work it all the way down. You notice I haven't taken any of the caps off yet either, because I do not want to expose anything to dirt or the atmosphere until it's time. Alright, so I have my big hole through the cabinet base there, through that end table top, and then down through the floor there. So the next step is to pretty much feed the line set up through the floor here. You can see it right there. Right? There you go. Now the best way to undo this copper piping or tubing is to kind of put it flat on the ground and then roll it out. That'll straighten it out so we aren't trying to kink it. My feet are not crushing it, I swear. Now, the line set does have insulation on it. We need to keep that on there because this will sweat and make its own condensation. So we need to make sure it doesn't do that. And make sure we don't take any of those plugs off until we're ready to hook it up. Because as we feed it up through there, we don't want to get anything in there. Tubing. So now I'm just going to carefully pull all these up, all the way back up, and hook it up, making sure I do not kink the tubing, because this is very thin-walled copper tubing now. Kinks easily. Believe it or not, the next step is actually hook up these lines. So we're going to take off this caps. Now there's some shipping air that's put in there, so if it doesn't leak any air, you should be concerned, because it means it lost its charge. Well, not its charge, but it probably has a leak. Now, some people do like to use a copper gasket. I did not choose to do that. But the most important thing to remember is we want to double wrench it using a line wrench or flare wrench like this, so we don't round out the brass fitting. Alright, so with the lines connected, I don't want to put anything away yet because I still do need to hook up the lines on the outside. I haven't taken those caps off yet either. But we also need to check and make sure it doesn't have a leak. Okay, so that's going to be important to do. Also, I still have to run the communication and power wire for this unit right here. So we're just going to take this, open it up. There should be a little kickstand there to hold it. Now you can see it does have a serviceable air filter on both sides. A lot of people don't know about that. We'll need to route the wiring past this panel here. And I'm going to regret not having routed it up to here already. But this is how we learn, right? Got the cable clamp here. Now there's no electrical wiring or power hooked up yet. Yeah, it's probably safe to say that I should have routed this and hooked it up first. But right down in there is a channel for the wire to run. So I can just pull this through and then hook it up to the connections right up here. And the good news is that it is labeled 1, 2, 3 ground. And this is already terminated with 1, 2, 3 ground. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Alright, so I have the wires wired up. Yellow is 1, white is 2, black is 3, and then ground is up there. Clamp is on. I'm not going to put the cover on here yet until we test everything out. I do just have to route this down there. And then we go outside. Alright, so we are going to have to hook up the lines out here. Now, just to be honest, I'm going to leave a lot of all the slack on this, but you could go ahead and reflare it, cut and reflare it if you want to, but I want to be able to take this off and service it because I'm going to do a test on the ground before I mount it here because I do want to make sure everything's going to work before I invest all the time and effort into it. Also, my flaring skills are 50-50 and the factory's flares are really nice and pretty. We're going to go with the factory ones. Alright, so I have a temporary power cord for this because it does not come with a power cord and it does need a 20 amp breaker is what it says. What we're going to do is take off this access cover down below. Alright, there's going to be our ports. Now we're going to have to hook up a vacuum pump to this because we obviously do have atmosphere inside the lines and up in the air handler. We also have to hook up the electrical too. Alright, so it's pretty easy to see. We have 1, 2, 3 and ground right there. We have neutral and line and ground over there. We already have the clamps for it right here. So all we have to do is feed the wire up through the bushing here. Alright, so the next step is to hook up the lines. Now I have a vacuum pump hooked up right now. So we're going to go ahead and hook up these lines. Then we're going to go ahead and tighten them up just like we did on the inside. Alright, now I hope you can see why I left the line set long, so I had a nice service line. If I ever need to take it out to repair it anyways, or remove it, or whatever, it needs to be done. So I have those tightened up. I have the vacuum line hooked up to there. I will tell you that this fitting did not seem very good. Alright, so all my fittings here are tight. And what we're going to do is turn the vacuum pump on. We're going to pull vacuum and basically evacuate the lines and the evaporator up here. There's valves underneath these caps right there. Those are closed, so we're not touching the condensing unit at all right now. In fact, we want those closed. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And then we want to run this for at least 15 minutes, pulling a vacuum to evacuate the whole system. All right, this is running for about 15 minutes. Let's go make some soapy water. Because what we are going to do is, after we pull vacuum on it, we're going to open up the valve. It is pre-charged, but we're not going to open it up all the way. We're just going to let some of the refrigerant in, and we're going to check our fittings for any bubbles. We shouldn't need a lot of it, but we do want to make sure it's very bubbly. This refrigerant that they're using is flammable. So is propane. Now while we wait for the vacuum pump to finish vacuuming, because this is not intended for an RV, I'm going to put 2 lock screws right up the top, which will put some downward pressure because this whole thing does clip down. Obviously most houses don't drive down the road, so now if there's a bump it can't actually slide up. All right, it's been about 30 minutes, so we'll go ahead and turn it off. Make sure our needle doesn't pop back up because that would indicate a vacuum leak. And we're gonna go ahead and give it about a quarter turn. Put a little bit of charge in it. Now we're gonna use our soapy water we just made. We're gonna go ahead and see if we have any bubbles forming. No bubbles. Check for bubbles here. Don't worry, I'll clean up my mess. Okay, I didn't see any bubbles. Now what we're going to do is basically turn all these two valves all the way on. Until it backs all the way off. Same with this one down here. Let's go ahead and put all of our caps back on. Alright, here we got our makeshift power cord here. Don't need the vacuum pump anymore. Plug that in. 20 amp breaker. Alright, now I've already put the batteries in the remote, so we'll go ahead and turn it on. Hey, at least we have something going on up there. Alright, we're in America. Alright, so I'm going to set it for 68 degrees. Alright, well the fan's on. You can't hear it because it's quiet. I come out here and I didn't even know it was running. It's so quiet. Barely see the fan going. You can kind of hear the compressor humming. Here, the roof AC is just fine. I'm happy to say that it's nice and cold air coming out right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the roof AC off. It couldn't even maintain 83 degrees. It was climbing in the heat. Alright, well these controls don't make a lot of sense to me. Luckily they gave me a manual for it. But the cool thing about it is I put it in turbo mode so that we have the swing motion there, but it'll also swing side to side on the inside. I don't know if we can see that or not. Alright, I'm going to let this go ahead and run for a little bit before I start putting everything away. I will have to get some supplies for that cover over there, and we'll have to secure underneath there. There's also an app I think you can download for Apple iOS or Android that I think you could probably operate your AC from anywhere in the country or the world. It's weird that this can do that, but those can't. It's running. It's running on high speed. Can you hear it? I just connected it to its own app. That was a very easy connection point. Basically, you're just going to hit the eco button 6 times until the screen says, I think, CF. And then it'll just follow the instructions. Obviously, I have a lot more work to do, but I wanted to point this out. We've been running for about 15 minutes. The roof AC was struggling to even keep it at 83. We're 78 in here now. Now, you might be able to say, well, the air is blowing straight on those thermostats, but that AC unit is a good solid 15 feet away. Alright guys, I really need to start putting this thing back together. There's not much to see anymore. I did go ahead and put some spray foam to close in the openings that were down here. This was from the factory, that was from the factory, this was from me. I did use one of those collars like I said I was, to act as a little bit of a bushing. Otherwise, we'll get this put back together, and I will be using screws to put the panel back on. That way, you know, if somebody needs to get in there, they can. And then of course this turned out really nice. I'll just put like 4 screws in at an angle to keep it in place. And then right here, we'll just make a protective shelf. All right, on the outside right here, I'm just ready to put the metal back on. And obviously I'm gonna have to cut this part off. And right about there is where that's gonna end. So basically I'm gonna cut off this much and then down to there. The light I still have to figure out because I don't really want to screw rubbing it against the lines there, but I think this will work. This is the point of no return now. Well, so there it is. Hopefully you can see the mark in the sunlight there. It's going to take a lot of aluminum out of there. I'll just ease the corners with a radius using the unibit. Alright, now it's just going to be a matter of hand cutting it out. I really should get a better pair of these. I'm thinking I probably should have done a test fit before I started cutting. Yeah, definitely time to get new shears. All right, let's go see how this thing fits. All right, I'm all lined up right there, and well, I forgot to make an allowance for the 1 inch that goes inside there, so I exposed a little bit more than I wanted to. But I think I'll give this customer the option of down the road, I'll get some bulb seal, like a wiper seal like this, that crimps on right here, and it'll seal off all the way around and give a little bit more strength to this, because we'll only have that back there. But overall, I think it's going to look pretty intentional. I was just going to do a half moon right there, but that seemed like an awful lot more work, and for anybody that has to work on this in the future, they're going to be happy that I did it this way. Yeah, it's easy to have critiques after the fact. The line set I could have cut to make it look a little bit nicer. I don't know if it's worth the extra 3 hours of work to do that. And did I mention that it's running full blast right now? I can barely hear it. The last thing's going to be these brackets right here. I can't really cut it flush because of the slotted hole right there. If I cut it, that'll allow the whole thing to open up. So I might just have to cut and bend that up. Just go ahead and paint this. That is steel and we don't want it to rust. I think that might dress the whole thing up a little bit too. Oh yeah, looks a lot better, huh? Much better. All right, so before I button up and put a shelf over here to protect it, I did want to point out I put some clamps to secure the whole thing to the wall, and the condensate drain is not being, I guess, crimped, and it does go downhill the whole length. There's the union right there. It's just a push-in connection, so hopefully that won't ever have to leak, but it is accessible. And maybe I didn't follow the instructions word for word on the installation of this, but these are only supposed to be installed in a house. You know, honestly, if I didn't have all this cabinetry work to do, I just ran the lines on the outside, this wouldn't have been that big of a job. Custom cabinetry is always a lot more work, but check this out. This is what I put together. I made this top piece right there out of some scrap the customer still had from some of their other work. So that'll go on that cleat back there and get screwed on the back. Just like that. Hopefully you see I do have another cleat down here into the frame there and just toe-nailed over into there. And so I got this little piece of paneling, which is the last piece that I really had for the entire thing. And I notched it around the framing down there. And then I put a cleat on the underside of that shelf that I just put on. That way I just screw it down to the bottom into that cleat. I don't know if you guys can see it. At the top right there. Alright. And now, hopefully, you can see we have protection for everything I just installed right there. You can actually use this as a shelf if you wanted to, because it is a cabinet. And more importantly, this is what every manufacturer should take note of, it can be taken apart really easily if somebody needs to work on it. Even on the box that I made over here, all the screws are very accessible. I know somebody will say, well, that doesn't look so good, but it's functional. We have screws on the lights right there. Nobody complains about that. But with that, it's done and installed. It's nice and cold in here. Now I just need to put everything back together the way the customer had it, make sure I clean up my mess, and then we'll go over the numbers real fast, because I'm tired. Alright, so let me go to the app right there. It's a Smart Life. I'll click on the air conditioner there. Go ahead and turn it on. And we'll go ahead and drop the temperature down. We'll go to 68 right there. Yes, you're reading that right. It's running on turbo or high, and we're only pulling 12 kilowatts or 1200 watts. And that's not everything the AC is pulling. So let me go ahead and turn off the AC. So with the other refrigerator running, we're pulling about 150 watts. So not even 1200 watts to run that AC unit. Let's just go ahead and call it 100 watts was the baseline. We were pulling 1200 watts with this thing on turbo. So 1100 watts with it running. That's pretty good. I know it's only 12,000 BTU, but I can tell you working in here, it was cooling much better than that 15,000 watt Coleman roof AC. Success! Yeah, I know I still have to put everything back together, but I've been running the mini split this morning and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. We're at a nice comfortable 65 degrees in here, but that's not the important thing. The 3 roof ACs probably could have done that at a high price and it would have been very, very loud and noisy, but it's on full blast right now and we can have a normal conversation. The success is what my customer wanted all along. Using this massive solar array that I installed for him at the beginning of the year and bringing it down into the Blue Eddy EP800 to run the entire RV off the solar array, even though they do have power here at the park. And even though it's only 10 o'clock in the morning, that solar array is putting out 2,000 watts of power, enough to charge the battery while providing all the power for the RV that the AC, the refrigerator, and the battery charger are using at 1.4 kilowatts. And during the day yesterday, this did peak out about 3,000 watts. And this one mini split is going to be enough to keep it nice and cool in here during the day. And I can feel that cold air all the way here in the hallway next to the bathroom. And even the second bedroom over here is pretty comfortable. So to call this successful, I think would be a mild understatement. It's been a year in the making and a year in the doing. And I'm glad to be done with it. Well, almost done with it. And to answer the last question that I know people have is, exactly how is this getting power? Like everything, it's complicated. Now the manufacturer of this, Rovsun or Robson, I don't really know. They said it needed a 20 amp circuit breaker, even though I've never seen it pull more than 1,300 watts. My original plan was just to tie into the 15 amp outlet right there, but they said it needed a 20 amp breaker. And I was not going to run power all the way to the middle of the RV right there. So I came up with a new solution for the owner, which actually gives them a lot of options. I made a heavy duty extension plug because these don't come with a power cord, and it goes to his powerhouse here, and I put a 20 amp outlet on the Blue Eddy EP800 system right here. So it's still powered off his solar setup from the roof, but let's just say he does go ahead and move the RV to a different location without having his powerhouse right here. You can just coil up that cord. And a majority of RV sites and pedestals will have a outlet right there, and this one's a 20 amp breaker. So technically he could run all 3 roof ACs and this basement AC mini split because he has 70 amps of power at that point. So now I'm going to call this done. But I will leave you with this food for thought. This isn't even a very efficient mini split on heat or cool. Oh yeah, did I mention one more thing? There's a heat pump. There's absolutely no reason to put a whole new AC unit on if it's not going to be a heat pump. I don't understand it. So not only will this cool during the summer, it'll also heat during the winter, saving propane and electricity. Now just imagine how inefficient these roof ACs are. I can't deny, I keep thinking about putting a shelf above that, but the amount of effort that would take, and I don't have any of this lumber right there to make it look good, that'd be another full day of work just to make a shelf, and we don't need that. Luckily, this fifth wheel is equipped with a, and even though I didn't like the look of, running a line set or the tube, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'm only going by what I've been told. First mini split install, remember? I don't know why you guys doubt me and think that I don't understand how things work on an RV when they drive down the road. Fabricating those spacer mounts was already a lot of work, let alone fabricating mounts for the AC to sit on. But Winnebago had a trick for their basement ACs. And I firmly believe that great art is steel. Especially when engineers already did the math for you. The plan is to take a lot of the stress off up here of that bracket. So if I just lift up right here, watch what happens. I now have it braced on the inside of the floor, which is why I cut this thing out, because it was going to fit okay. And now I can put my custom made brackets right here to lock it in place. Into one of the strongest parts of an RV, the floor. Alright, so with those two brackets installed, now we should just be able to kick out the kickstand. And look at that, it doesn't rattle anymore. Which should relieve a lot of stress that was on those bolts right there, keeping from bending. And look at that, my condensate's still draining okay. More importantly, I haven't even tightened up these bolts here yet. Sometimes you just get really lucky and the poplar is already almost the right color. I'll just do this for effect with a dark walnut stain. But I think this is going to look like the factory made it. Even with all the faded multicolors, just like the factory had with their stain job. I don't know. Looks pretty good to me.